This is the journey we embark on to uncover the lost cities of Africa, beneath the sands, beyond the rivers, and hidden in the forests of Africa lie whispers of forgotten cities, places where stone walls touched the sky, where kings were crowned as living gods, and where the line between heaven and earth seemed to blur. These were not just settlements of men, they were realms where myths walked as flesh, where ancestors spoke through temples, and where the very soil carried the memory of the divine. Before Greece dreamed of Olympus, before Mesopotamia carved its ziggurats, Africa had already raised kingdoms of stone and spirit. Great Zimbabwe's towering walls stood like silent guardians of a golden age. Its sacred bronzes captured faces so lifelike they seemed to breathe with ancestral power. Ethiopia's Lalibela was carved not just by men but legend says by angels who walked under the cover of night. But time is a merciless thief. Sand swallowed kingdoms, forests reclaimed palaces, and memory dissolved into myth. Today archaeologists dig for fragments, while storytellers preserve echoes of cities where gods and humans once lived together. Whether myths, exaggerations of oral tradition, or evidence of a forgotten age when the sacred dwelled openly with mankind. To retrace the steps of kings, priests, and gods, and to ask the question, what truth still lies hidden beneath Africa's forgotten stones? Long before Egypt rose to global fame, the lands of Kush and Nubia in what is now Sudan carried a legacy that earned them the title City of the Gods. Here in Meroe and Napata, kings and queens were not remembered as ordinary rulers, but as divine beings, sons and daughters of the gods themselves. These cities became the heartbeat of a civilization that blended politics, spirituality, and cosmic order into a single vision of life. Their pyramids still rise from the desert sands, smaller and steeper than those of Giza, yet countless in number, each one a silent proclamation that life was not only for the living, but for eternity. Meroe was a city of iron and fire, where smelters roared and the wealth of trade routes flowed. But beneath its industry lay a deeper truth. It was a sacred capital, a place where kings ruled not by might alone, but through divine mandate. Napata, older than Meroe, held an even more sacred aura. At the base of the sacred mountain Jebel Barkal, the Kushites believed the gods themselves descended. Its peak was seen as a throne of the divine, a physical gateway through which heaven and earth touched. This belief was not metaphor, but reality for the people of Kush, who saw their rulers as chosen intermediaries, vessels through whom the gods governed. The temples built here were not mere places of worship but cosmic instruments, aligned with stars, rivers, and sacred mountains to ensure balance between the human realm and the divine. Every stone carried intention, every carving bore witness to the truth that kingship was more than rule. It was a covenant between the gods, the land, and the people. To understand the grandeur of Kush and Nubia is to grasp how central the idea of divine kingship was. The king was not simply a political figure, he was a living embodiment of the gods, a child of the creator, a guardian of Ma'at, cosmic truth and balance. Inscriptions called rulers, sons of Amun, a title not borrowed from Egypt but rooted in the own deep cosmology of the Nile. The river itself was understood as the lifeblood of the gods, and to control it was not only a feat of governance but a spiritual responsibility. When the floods came, they were interpreted as blessings or judgments, signs that the covenant between king, people, and gods remained intact or had been broken. This concept of divine kingship extended into every corner of Nubian life. Agriculture thrived not just because of human labor, but because of the belief that the gods blessed the soil through the king's mediation. Trade flourished because merchants carried with them not only goods but prayers, rituals, and offerings to the gods who ensured safe passage. War itself was not mere conquest, it was seen as divine justice, carried out with spiritual sanction to expand the realm of balance and order. To strike against Kush was to strike against the gods, and to serve its kings was to serve heaven. The ruins of Meroe and Napata remind us that African civilization was never separate from spirituality. Unlike the fragmented view of modern history, in Kush and Nubia, politics, economy, religion, and cosmic law were inseparable. A king without divine approval was no king at all, and the people without divine kingship were considered abandoned. This is why their temples still speak, why their pyramids still pierce the sky. They are eternal testimonies to a civilization that understood life as part of a larger cosmic story. In this cradle of civilization, Kush and Nubia gave the world not only wealth, iron, and art, but a vision of rulership that was both earthly and divine. Their cities, built on sacred geography and celestial alignment, remind us that Africa's lost capitals were more than stone. They were sanctuaries of divine presence, cities where gods and humans did not live apart but together. In the heart of southern Africa lies one of the continent's greatest enigmas, a city of stone that rose from the earth without mortar, its walls curving and stretching across the landscape like the coils of a serpent. This city is Great Zimbabwe, a marvel of human ingenuity and spiritual imagination. Constructed between the 11th and 15th centuries, it was no mere settlement, but a vast urban and ceremonial center, a place where stone was shaped not only into towering enclosures, but into a living testament of power, wealth, and divine presence. Its walls, some standing more than 30 feet high, were built with such precision that they have endured for centuries without the binding of cement, an architectural achievement that still baffles modern observers. Great Zimbabwe was not an isolated fortress. It was a hub of trade, reaching as far as Arabia, India, and even China. Glass beads, Persian ceramics, and Chinese porcelain found within its ruins testify to a city deeply connected to global networks long before colonial maps imagined Africa as closed off. Yet beyond commerce, it carried a sacred weight, for its very stones were imbued with ancestral power. Oral traditions tell of the bird of stone, the Zimbabwe bird, carved in soapstone and perched within the city as both guardian and messenger. This bird was not merely decorative, but symbolic, a spiritual emblem that linked rulers to the divine. It was believed to embody the presence of ancestors, serving as an intermediary between the world of humans and the unseen realm. The bird carried messages, protected the city, and reminded the people that leadership was sanctioned not by mere inheritance or military might, but by ancestral approval. Even today, the Zimbabwe bird endures as a national symbol, a quiet reminder of the deep spiritual aura that once flowed through this stone-built city. The city's aura was inseparable from the belief that ancestors, gods, and rulers lived in communion here. The enclosures, with their labyrinth-like passages and towering walls, were not simply defensive structures but spaces of ritual. It is said that rulers would retreat into the stone courts not only to govern but to speak with the spirits of the land, to receive counsel from ancestors, and to perform ceremonies that tied the prosperity of the kingdom to divine will. Every stone carried memory, and every wall was an altar. Within this sacred geography, the people of Great Zimbabwe saw themselves not as subjects of mere kings, but as members of a cosmic community that bridged the living and the dead, the human and the divine. Yet Great Zimbabwe was not alone. Across southern Africa, other stone cities rose, forming a constellation of sacred capitals that bore witness to Africa's golden age. Among them was Mapungubwe, often referred to as the Golden Kingdom. Located near the confluence of the Limpopo and Shashe rivers, Mapungubwe thrived before Great Zimbabwe, serving as an earlier center of trade, kingship, and spirituality. Its hilltop palace and surrounding settlements reveal a society that had mastered the balance between commerce and sacred order. Gold artifacts uncovered from Mapungubwe, including finely crafted figurines and ornaments, speak to a civilization that understood wealth not only as material possession, but as spiritual currency. To wear gold was not only to display status, but to shine with divine radiance, for gold was believed to hold the essence of the sun, a visible sign of celestial favor. Together, Great Zimbabwe, and Mapungubwe tell a story of southern Africa as a land of stone and spirit, where architecture was not only functional but symbolic, where cities were living temples, and where rulers governed not only as kings but as custodians of ancestral and divine order. These stone cities were places where the earth itself was shaped into a script of power, prosperity, and faith, leaving behind ruins that whisper of empires once luminous with both trade and transcendence. To walk among their remains today is to walk in the shadow of ancestors, to feel the weight of stones that still pulse with memory, and to realize that these cities were not abandoned myths, but sacred realities etched into the very fabric of African soil. Beneath the vast and unforgiving expanse of the Sahara Desert lie the memories of a forgotten people, a kingdom carved not from fertile valleys or lush forests, but from the shifting sands themselves. This was the realm of the Garamantes, a desert civilization that thrived in Libya's Fezzan region long before the desert reached its current desolation. To most, the Sahara appears as an empty wasteland, endless dunes stretching into silence. Yet for centuries, the Garamantes made this hostile land bloom with ingenuity and an almost mystical mastery of water. They built a vast network of underground channels known as fogaras, stretching for miles beneath the sands. These man-made arteries tapped hidden aquifers deep below the desert, bringing water to the surface and sustaining life in what should have been barren ground. In the heart of the desert, they cultivated fields of wheat, dates, and grapes, sustaining a kingdom that challenged the very limits of human resilience. But the Garamantes were not remembered only for their engineering. Legends tell of desert gods who guided them to hidden oases, unseen hands leading them toward the life-giving waters buried beneath rock and sand. These myths suggest that survival in the Sahara was not only a matter of human effort but also divine intervention. To the Garamantes, the gods of the desert were guardians of thresholds, beings who could either curse with thirst or bless with abundance. Each oasis was more than a resting place. It was a sacred shrine where the veil between the human world and the spirit world thinned. Travelers and priests alike offered prayers at these waters, invoking protection against the relentless sun and asking for safe passage across a land where survival itself was a miracle. The city of Garama, their capital, stood as a glittering example of their civilization. Nestled amidst the desert, it was not only a center of trade, but a city where myth and survival intertwined. Caravans carrying gold, salt, slaves, and ivory crossed its thresholds, linking the Garamantes with the Mediterranean world, Egypt, and even sub-Saharan Africa. Yet beyond its wealth, Garama was remembered as a liminal place, a city where gods and mortals were believed to meet under the cloak of desert nights. The silence of the Sahara, broken only by the howl of winds and the steps of camels, was understood as the voice of the unseen, a constant reminder that the desert itself was alive with divinity. Some scholars and storytellers have even suggested that the tales of the Garamantes and their desert kingdom may have seeded whispers of Atlantis, the fabled lost city described by Plato. Though the classical legend locates Atlantis beneath the sea, there are African traditions that speak of drowned or buried cities, swallowed not by oceans but by sand. The Sahara, once lush with rivers and lakes, dried slowly over millennia, and civilizations that once flourished yet disappeared beneath its advancing dunes. Could the Garamantes have been one of those civilizations whose grandeur inspired tales of a world swallowed whole? The parallels are haunting. A once mighty kingdom, advanced in engineering and trade, suddenly vanishing, leaving behind ruins buried under shifting sands. The Garamantes may not have built towering pyramids or left behind monuments like those along the Nile, but their mastery of desert survival, their hidden cities, and their myths of divine guidance give them a place among Africa's most mysterious civilizations. Their underground channels remain as testimony, invisible to the eye yet enduring across time, much like their memory. Today, archaeologists still uncover fragments of their world, broken pottery, tools, and bones that tell of a people who lived in balance with forces far greater than themselves. To the Garamantes, the desert was not merely a barren expanse, but a sacred ocean of sand, one where gods whispered, where hidden waters pulsed beneath the earth, and where their destiny unfolded in communion with both myth and survival. To remember them is to see the Sahara not as empty, but as alive, filled with buried stories, silent cities, and gods who still watch from beneath the sands. Their story reminds us that even in the harshest landscapes, human ingenuity and divine guidance can create kingdoms that rival the greatest on earth, only to vanish like mirages, waiting, perhaps, for us to rediscover them. In the forests and savannas of West Africa lie the echoes of kingdoms that once stood as the heart of divine human communion, cities where art, kinship, and myth converged into a living testament of sacred memory. Among these, if in present-day Nigeria stands unrivaled, celebrated in oral tradition as the navel of the world, the Yoruba believed that it was in Ife that the gods descended to mold the first humans, shaping clay into flesh and breathing destiny into existence. This myth gives Ife a cosmic role, not merely as a city, but as the center of creation itself, a place where the divine hand touched the earth and left humanity as its inheritance. Archaeological discoveries seem to whisper confirmations of this belief, for Ife's bronze and terracotta heads, crafted with uncanny naturalism, appear less like human art and more like divine portraits. These sculpted faces, serene and regal, were said to represent not only kings but also gods who once walked among men, teaching crafts, justice, and the order of the world. The city of Benin, rising later to prominence in the same region, carried forward this divine legacy in its own unique form. The Benin kingdom became synonymous with sacred kingship, where the Oba was not simply a ruler, but an earthly god. His throne was more than political, it was spiritual, the embodiment of ancestral power and divine will. Rituals within the palace confirmed this connection, with sacrifices and ceremonies designed to maintain harmony between the people, their ancestors, and the gods themselves. The bronze plaques and sculptures of Benin tell the story in metal, kings depicted larger than life, surrounded by attendants and symbols of power, a clear declaration that the Oba stood at the threshold of mortal and divine. The city itself functioned as a sacred theater where religion and rulership merged into a single eternal performance, one that bound its people together under a shared vision of divinity embodied in human form. Yet Ife and Benin were not isolated marvels, but part of a broader tapestry of West African myth and memory. Across the forests, grasslands, and deserts, countless stories speak of cities that thrived under divine patronage only to disappear into legend. One such tale is that of Ouagadougou, the fabled city of the ancient Ghana Empire. According to Soninke oral traditions, Ouagadougou was not merely a city, but a sacred covenant between the people and their gods. Its survival depended on the people's loyalty to their spiritual oaths. But when greed and betrayal entered their hearts, the city vanished, swallowed by the desert sands or hidden by the gods themselves, leaving behind only myth. Some traditions suggest that Ouagadougou still exists, shimmering like a mirage, appearing briefly to the faithful before retreating once more into invisibility. It is said to be both a warning and a promise, a reminder that cities built on divine trust endure only as long as that trust is honored. Taken together, the stories of Ife, Benin, and Ouagadougou reveal a vision of civilization very different from the secular histories often told in modern times. These were not cities built merely on trade or warfare, though both flourished there. They were cities born of covenant, shaped by the belief that gods and humans shared the same space, exchanging wisdom, order, and authority. It was creation's cradle, where humans were molded. Benin was the living embodiment of divine kingship, where rulers themselves became sacred, and Ouagadougou was the eternal parable of lost faith, showing that prosperity without devotion collapses into dust. Today, their memory continues to live not only in ruins, bronzes, and terracotta heads, but in the rituals, songs, and prayers of their descendants. To walk in Ife is to tread the navel of the world. To stand before the bronzes of Benin is to see metal infused with divinity. To hear the stories of Ogadu is to encounter the voice of ancestors, reminding us that cities rise and fall not only by power, but by their alignment with the sacred. These lost kingdoms remind us that in West Africa, civilization was not simply human endeavor, it was divine human partnership, a fragile and magnificent dance that left behind myths as immortal as stone. In the highlands of Ethiopia, where mountains rise like cathedrals and valleys echo with the whispers of ancient faith, like the cities that the world has long called sacred, Ethiopia has never been a land divorced from the divine. Rather, it has been seen for millennia as the very throne of God on earth, a place where heaven touches stone and where myths of kings, prophets, and angels take on physical form. Among its most celebrated cities stands Aksum, the legendary seat of an empire that once rivaled Rome and Persia, and whose heart, tradition insists, holds the most sacred relic in Judeo-Christian history, the Ark of the Covenant. The story of Aksum is not only one of kings and trade routes, but of divine heritage. Ethiopian tradition, preserved in texts like the Kebra Nagast, proclaims that the rulers of Aksum were descendants of King Solomon of Israel and the Queen of Sheba. This lineage gave Aksum its aura of divine legitimacy, placing its kings not only as earthly rulers but as heirs to a covenant forged with God Himself. The Ark of the Covenant, believed by Ethiopians to have been brought from Jerusalem by Menelik, the son of Solomon and Sheba, is said to rest in a guarded chapel within Aksum, unseen by the world but eternally powerful. This belief elevates Aksum beyond the category of lost city. It remains a living shrine where the divine presence is thought to dwell in a tangible vessel of power. To Ethiopian Christians, Aksum was not only a capital of empire but the resting place of heaven's most sacred gift. If Aksum embodies the covenantal heritage of Ethiopia, then Lalibela represents its miraculous devotion carved directly into the bones of the earth. Built in the 12th century, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela appear not so much constructed as revealed, each one a monolithic structure cut whole from living rock. Legends abound that angels aided the workers, toiling at night to complete what human hands alone could not achieve. The result is a labyrinth of subterranean chapels, walkways, and sanctuaries that seem less like human architecture and more like a sacred vision made solid. To step into Lalibela is to step into a world where faith takes the form of stone, where every corridor whispers the prayers of centuries, and where the silence itself feels divine. Pilgrims to Lalibela have long described it as a new Jerusalem, a city carved not to replace but to embody the celestial city promised in Scripture. The spiritual significance of Ethiopia's sacred cities cannot be separated from the belief that Ethiopia itself is God's chosen throne on earth. Throughout history, Ethiopia stood as a beacon of resistance, the one African nation never fully colonized, preserving its traditions and its faith through centuries of outside pressure. This resilience is interpreted by many as proof of divine favor, a sign that the mountains, valleys, and cities of Ethiopia were indeed sanctified as earthly reflections of heaven's order. The highlands are dotted with monasteries hidden in cliffs, accessible only to those willing to climb sheer rock faces or cross perilous ropes. A reminder that to seek God's presence requires struggle, sacrifice, and reverence. The myths of Aksum and Lalibela are not relics of a forgotten past. They continue to animate the Ethiopian spirit today. Festivals like Timkat, celebrating the baptism of Christ, bring thousands to witness processions of tabots, replicas of the Ark of the Covenant, paraded through the streets, echoing the ancient belief that the true Ark still rests in Aksum. Pilgrims walk barefoot into the rock-carved sanctuaries of Lalibela, their chants rising like incense through the carved windows, their devotion bridging centuries in a single breath. For them, These are not ruins or archaeological curiosities, but living cities of God, pulsing with the same spiritual vitality that first called them into being. In Ethiopia, the sacred is not abstract. It lives in stone, in relics, in royal lineages, and in the earth itself. Aksum, with its claim to house the Ark, embodies divine covenant and legitimacy. Lalibela, with its rock-hewn cathedrals, embodies miraculous devotion and the belief that angels walk among men. Together they proclaim Ethiopia as more than a nation. It is a sacred landscape, a throne for God upon the earth, where cities were built, not only by human hands, but by divine intention. Across Africa, memory lives not only in ruins of stone, but in the oral traditions that refuse to fade, carrying whispers of cities that defy the boundaries of history. These are the cities that scholars hesitate to name, the ones that dwell in myth, dream, and ritual song, the African Atlantean visions of realms that once existed, or perhaps still exist, beyond the veil of the scene. They are places where the line between human memory and divine mystery blurs, where the question lingers: are we listening to symbols or to echoes of forgotten realities buried beneath African soil? Among the Zulu, stories speak of underground cities hidden deep within the earth, realms where the ancestors still live, uncorrupted by time and untouched by colonial erasure. In these myths, the living and the dead are not estranged. Instead, the underground cities represent continuity, an unbroken chain of presence, while those who have passed on continue their existence in a vast ancestral metropolis beneath rivers, mountains, and sacred landscapes. Elders describe how, in moments of vision or ritual trance, chosen individuals glimpse these subterranean cities where ancestors are said to still gather in council, still guard the destinies of the living. These myths do not treat death as an ending but as a descent into another city, one parallel to our own, hidden but ever present. Such stories offer more than comfort. They are claims of spiritual geography, a mapping of existence that assets Africa's soil holds more than bones. It holds whole civilizations beneath its surface. In Mali, the Dogon people preserve a different but equally mysterious tradition. Their myths tell of gods often described as amphibious celestial beings, descending to earth to teach humanity knowledge of the stars, agriculture, and the order of the cosmos. These beings, sometimes referred to as the normal, are linked to oral accounts that describe star systems invisible to the naked eye, knowledge that baffled Western scholars when first recorded. The Dogon speak not of myth in the sense of mere story, but of ancestral encounters with divine teachers who shaped their understanding of the universe. Some have connected these stories to forgotten cities, sacred centers where heaven touched earth, places that might once have been the gathering points of gods and humans before the sands of time concealed them. Whether literal or metaphorical, these narratives root African identity not only in history but in cosmology, insisting that knowledge itself was born in a divine human meeting ground. The question remains, are these myths simply symbolic vessels, conveying spiritual truths through poetic imagery? Or are they fragments of history, clues to cities that once thrived before being swallowed by earth, water, or desert? The Zulu myths of underground cities might symbolize the continuity of life after death, yet they also provoke key archaeological curiosity about what lies beneath Africa's landscapes. The Dogon stories may express spiritual revelations, yet their astronomical precision suggests knowledge grounded in experiences that transcend ordinary imagination. What unites these myths is their insistence that Africa was never silent, never empty. The land remembers. The rivers, mountains, and skies carry testimony. Whether as metaphorical truths or hidden realities, these stories remind us that not all cities are built of stone. Some are built of memory, carried in chants and proverbs, hidden in dreams, and preserved in the ritual retellings of elders. These mythic cities, whether real or symbolic, continue to challenge the arrogance of modernity, reminding us that there are dimensions of African history still unseen. In the Zulu underground cities and the Dogon tales of celestial teachers, Africa speaks to us in both myth and mystery, daring us to ask whether what we call legend may in fact be the faint echo of forgotten civilizations that once stood as bridges between gods and humankind. The memory of Africa's lost cities is more than a tale of dust and ruins. It is a testament to a continent that has always held the meeting place of gods and humankind. From the pyramids of Nubia to the carved stones of Great Zimbabwe, from the echoes of Dogon skies to the whispers of Zulu underground realms, Africa reminds us that cities are not only structures of brick and stone, but sanctuaries of spirit, myth, and divine presence. Archaeology uncovers fragments of walls and artifacts, but oral tradition keeps alive the heartbeat of these sacred spaces, teaching us that when kingdoms fade, memory endures. We must understand that to speak of these cities is not to mourn what is gone, but to recognize what still breathes in myth and ritual. The proverb says, when stone crumbles, memory remains, and in memory the gods still live. These myths are not dead stories, they are living testaments that continue to guide, protect, and challenge us. They remind us that Africa is not the forgotten land that colonial narratives painted it to be, but the keeper of the world's first sacred cities, the cradle of divine human encounters that shaped civilizations long before others rose. And so, I invite you to see Africa not through the lens of erasure, but as the eternal guardian of the world's oldest sacred memory. To my viewers, may you walk with the wisdom of the ancestors. May your spirit be open to the truths hidden beneath the soil. And may the gods who shape cities of stone and myth shape your destiny with strength and clarity. I thank you deeply for watching, for listening, and for remembering. Stay connected, share your thoughts, and honor the memory of these sacred realms. For in remembering, you become part of the eternal city that never dies.